The world is a strange and terrifying place. Out in the wild, anything can happen. Brace yourselves as we explore the strange wilderness.
Welcome to Strange Wilderness, the show that takes you out of the comfort and safety of your homes, far away from civilization, and explores all the unexplained disappearances, disturbing encounters, and bizarre events that the wild has to offer. I'm Matt, and my co-host, Scaredy Ginge, and I invite you to join us in looking for the things that go bump in the night. Do you have any true stories that you would like featured on Strange Wilderness? If so, send a message to @StrangeWPod on Twitter or in an email to strangewildernesspod@gmail.com. Greetings, explorers. Allow me to be the one to extend my strangest apologies for the delayed release of this week's episode. It seems that the original recording decided to seek out a staircase in the woods, found one, and proceeded to climb them, where it was promptly corrupted, leading to it evaporating out of existence. GG. With that said, enjoy this week's Strange Wilderness shenanigans. Just south of Mexico City, between the canals of Xochimilco, there lies a small island. This island was never meant to be a tourist destination, but its dark and mysterious past has led to it becoming a hotbed for paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and fans of all things spooky. You might be asking yourself, "Hey Matt, what makes this place so scary?" And in response, I'll let the dolls strung up across the island tell you for themselves. For you see, this island has since been named La Isla de las Muñecas, which, when translated, reads the Island of the Dolls. Also, forgive me for my pronunciations. I'm Canadian.
You should have said I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for my pronunciations. For you see, I'm Canadian, eh? Our story begins with the caretaker of the island, Don Julian Santana Barrera. A native of Xochimilco, had left his family and sequestered himself on a remote island on Texuelo Lake. His motives behind just randomly up and leaving his family are unclear, though many claim that from that point on, Julian was just not sound of mind. Legend goes that one day, while tending to various activities on the island, Julian came across a tragic and rather chilling discovery. Allegedly, he came across the body of a young girl, floating in the water around the island, dead of an apparent drowning. I should mention that the age of the girl is not mentioned, though they all say that she was quite young, so take that. Shortly after discovering her body, Julian also noticed a small doll, most definitely belonging to the deceased child, floating down the canal in the direction of the island. It was at this point that the legend behind the Island of the Dolls would come into shape. Now, I should also say, it's been called into question whether or not Julian even discovered a deceased girl, but nonetheless, legend. After retrieving the doll, Julian was said to have taken it to a nearby tree, where he promptly hung it up as a sign of respect to the dead child, and also to appease her spirit. With that said, the legend also says that this was not even remotely enough. Very quickly, Julian was said to have been haunted by the spirit of the girl, who would go on to torment him relentlessly. At this point, Julian opted to hang more dolls from various trees, once again in an attempt to calm and appease her spirit. Why hanging the dolls from trees would calm the spirit when they're like hung from a tree is besides the point. I mean, you could always just like set them up in like a tea party at the base of a tree, but what do I know? I don't live on an island.
And that's kind of my, like, to me, that's a very messed up child if they want to see their dolls hanging from trees.
Hang my toys, mommy. Just like, where do you want me to put Mr. Bunny? It's just like, from the rafters, string him up.
Okay.
Kids are weird, but like, I don't think they're that weird.
Yeah, no. I mean, my son's not that weird, but I'm also his mom, so I'm very biased on that.
That's fair. He's going around going, my mom says I'm cool.
It must be true.
I've said that. My mom like gushes about me to people and I'm not really sure why. And I'm just kind of like, my mom says I'm cool. And everyone just kind of shakes their head slowly at me. What's even creepier is that many of these dolls weren't even really dolls anymore, because some of them were nothing more than heads or torsos or like some weird amalgamation of limbs. Suffice to say, Sid from Toy Story really could have helped this guy out, what with the whole passion for dismembering dolls and toys. But I digress. After hanging this assortment of dolls, Julian began to realize that the dolls were rapidly being possessed by the spirits of other girls who had passed, and, to appease them, continued the seemingly endless cycle of hanging more dolls, only to have more ghosts inhabit them, meaning he had to hang more dolls, only to have more ghosts inhabit them, and so on. According to some that were close to him, this frantic behavior seemed to come from absolute nothingness, and it was believed that some unseen force had compelled him to continue this seemingly endless process. Was it the spirits of the deceased that were pushing him to continue collecting and ritualistically hanging dolls? Or was this his way of managing the grief he likely felt upon discovering the drowned girl's body? It's been said that he felt immense guilt stemming from his inability to do anything to save the young girl's life. So I guess either is technically possible. After decades of collecting and hanging various dolls around the island, specifically about 50 years, tragedy would befall Julian one final time. Now get this. He was discovered floating in the water, having drowned, allegedly in the exact spot he had discovered the young girl so many years ago.
Yeah, so that's not a coincidence.
My brain, it leads me to go, you know, had he told someone this was the spot, did he mark it with a big X? Like, I'm not sure, because, you know, accidental drownings, they happen, but did he just kind of like float into that spot, or was he drowned there and caught up on something and just stayed there? Or,
yeah.
And how did they know that that was the alleged spot? Did he mention that there was like the original doll like in a tree just above it? Like, oh, I put it in a palm tree just above where the girl, you know, where I found her.
Really odd.
I really don't know, but if that is to be believed, then yeah, some weird shenanigans are happening right now. From this point on, the island cemented itself as a paranormal tourist hotspot, with many visitors bringing dolls of their own as a sign of respect to the deceased girl, and the caretaker who hung so many dolls in her name. Legend goes that Julian's spirit joined the girl on the island after he passed, where he remains to this day. That would have been a really awkward conversation.
Yes.
Like, he becomes like a ghost, and so he can see like the ghost of the girl and potential other girls all inhabiting these dolls. And it gets to the point where he's just like, did I make you proud? And they all just kind of look at him and go, no, we were telling you not to hang the dolls. And what did you do? You hung the dolls.
Oh boy.
And so he now has to spend eternity on this island with these girls who are just like super pissed at him.
Yeah, and nobody wants to be around a bunch of pissed off girls.
Yeah, he's gonna spend eternity while they all kind of just like chuckle at a joke that he's never gonna be allowed to know.
Oh boy.
Most likely because he is the butt of the joke, but they're just always gonna kind of, sneer and like cackle behind, like their arms and stuff, and like look at him like, oh, like high school girls or something. And he's just like, cool. The afterlife is great. I love this. I wasted 50 years of my life trying to make you happy, and this is what I get. Cool.
So happy I did this. Yay.
Those who have visited the island in the years following Julian's death in 2001 have reported a number of strange and just terrifying experiences, which added fuel to the already red-hot legend surrounding this island. This is where it gets a little wishy-washy, but very scary, so brace yourselves. Some have reported that the dolls will move their heads and open their eyes on their own, scanning the area and following those nearby. Others claim that at night, when all is quiet, you can hear the faint whisper of the dolls communicating with each other. And this is what I mean when I say the dolls whispering is probably the girls kind of just spreading gossip about this poor man on the island who couldn't take a hint. It's all good. One group, on a boat near the island, claimed to have heard something calling to them from the island, which, according to legend, would likely be the dolls beckoning unlucky groups passing the area to the island, for seemingly reasons unknown.
I mean, probably to kill them.
I would imagine that, or like to take the dolls down and like put them in like, because there is a house on the island, and like maybe put them in the house and like set them up for the world's creepiest tea party. I really don't know, but like, it could be as innocent as that. They could just be like, please, like, I am a ghost and I am bound to this tree because the doll I possessed is hanging from its like left ankle.
Oh my god. It reminds me, there's a Criminal Minds episode where this woman, I mean, she's batshit crazy. Like, she's not of sound mind, and she kidnaps people and like paralyzes them, and they have to sit around like this table and play like a tea party. Like, that's what just came into my mind, and now I'm very scared. So I can't wait for nightmares tonight.
You'll never look at tea parties the same way again.
No.
See, and the part that creeps me out, I think, and it's funny but also scary, is he didn't just hang full dolls from these trees. Like, some of them would literally be like the head and like half of the torso and like an arm. What if you were one of those dolls? What if you inhabited one of those? You're like, I don't even have feet. Like phantom limb syndrome is a thing, but like I am a phantom with no limbs.
Yeah, that's odd.
And some of them don't have eyes, and some of them don't have heads, and some, like, what if you were one of the unlucky girls who inhabited one of those dolls? Like you're like literally just like a leg hanging from a tree, and he's just like, that was what the tide washed in today, so I guess that's what I'm hanging. And some like 5-year-old girl named Abigail is inhabiting this poor ghost, or this poor friggin' doll, and the dolls are whispering to each other at night, and they're just like, yo, Abby's being weirdly silent, and it's because she can't talk. She's a foot. She doesn't have like a mouth.
Oh god, probably.
The cool part is there's, oh my god, what's the show? I believe it was Destination Truth.
Yeah, there's been quite a few that have gone there.
Yeah, and he him and his team, I believe his name was like Josh Gates or something like that. Him and his team would take turns isolating themselves in this house. And so the team would go and they would set up camp somewhere, whether it was on the shoreline or just wherever it was. And, they had their cameras and all that stuff, and their mic and their walkie-talkie talking to the person in the house. But they would literally just plant someone dead center in the house, with a, like, what is it? A night vision camera sitting on the floor, just pointing at them. And most of them wouldn't sit there quietly. They would talk to themselves. They would talk to the camera, because that's, I guess, a form of calming yourself down and really just kind of making things a little more normal. My guess is because you're hearing your own voice, so at the very least you're kind of just like, okay, at least I know that still is a thing. There's, I'm the one talking, it's not something else.
Yeah.
And I think it was this show specifically, but at one point, apparently one of the people heard the whispering, or at the very least, like a really, really like strong gust hit one side of the house and sounded like whispering or whatever, but the guy freaked out. And then another one, apparently, because I believe there are dolls hanging inside the house as well.
There are. They're like nailed to the wall. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Maybe, yeah. I the more and more I'm hearing about these ghosts and how or not ghosts, the dolls and how they're hung up, the more I am starting to understand why they probably haunted him.
Yeah.
It's just like the lowest effort way of hanging them. Like, it was not done with care. No. You know how, like, for Christmas they go hung the stockings with care? Like, this is the opposite of that. And that's probably why this is a haunted island.
Yes.
But yeah, and I think it was one of the dolls, like, moved its head ever so slightly and, like, looked a little more in his direction or something. I don't remember specifically. I think one of them did move somehow. And it was a different person and, like, freaked out inside the house and was like, oh, I gotta get out of here, like... very standard clickbaity ghost hunting kind of stuff. But even just assuming that there's one ghost on the island, let alone hundreds if not thousands depending on how many parts of dolls there are that these ghosts can inhabit, that's like creepy enough to begin with. And take the reports with a grain of salt, because obviously they're just he said, she said kind of reports. It's not like they have video footage of a doll, like, literally turning its head while they're just putt-putting along on a boat. But, the fact that they apparently whisper to each other at night, and the fact that a group was not on the island, but just kind of adjacent to it, and heard something calling to them from the island, like, it's creepy as hell. Even if the calls to the island weren't from the girls and the ghosts and the dolls, there was someone on that island who really wanted to make murder with these people.
Exactly.
At that point, at least.
And I think it was Ghost Adventures, Zach Bagan, the ones that are like super, super over the top. I believe they did an investigation. I think almost every single ghost hunting like thing has done an investigation there, and it's always fun to see just how over the top people can be with it. I'm not saying it's not believable, because unless you can disprove it to me, I'm going to believe that it's true, for the simple fact that, like, anything can happen. We're in a world, we are very small, like, as we've said before, like, we're not the only beings, so do I believe that they're haunted? I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of voodoo or hoodoo or whatever going on. But, like, what really frustrates me, and I think a lot of people can agree with this, is when you have these, like, ghost hunters and stuff come to this, and then they get so dramatic with it that it just almost helps lose its credibility. And I don't know, that just really frustrates me, because it's like, this could be something that is actually happening. But nobody wants to believe it or whatever, because now you have a bunch of ghost hunters who thought it would be, cool and quirky to go out there and just overreact and, like, all that kind of stuff, when in reality, like, just go out there with, like, a camera and whatever stuff you want and everything, and just have conversations or sit there quietly. But nowadays it's just all about getting them clicks on YouTube. So if you're over the top, you're gonna get those views.
Yeah, exactly. Like, those shows specifically, they would always have something really, what could be considered paranormal or something, like, really just scary happen right before a commercial break. And they'd be like, right before it would cut to the commercial, they'd be like, what was that? Yep. And then commercial, hope you like the new Hyundai Elantra, guys, because you're going to be looking at that for the next 3.5 minutes before they get back to whatever the hell just happened. They, ghost hunters, not the show specifically, but just ghost hunters in general, I find have some genuine moments where, if I'm in, like, a castle, for example, I'm in a castle in, like, Ireland, and they're like, this castle is super haunted, and I hear a noise that should realistically not be there, whether it's explainable or not, I'm probably gonna lose my mind. I'll probably freak out, whatever. But yeah, there are some of them where like, you know, like their EMF reader will go from like .01 to .02, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, it was a ghost!" and they'll start freaking out.
When it's like your cell phone probably like got service or something really quick.
Exactly. And it's gotten to the point where South Park, I forget how many years ago, made fun of this episode, or made fun of ghost hunters with an episode. And in it, you know, the ghost hunters go into Stan's house because it kind of makes fun of like the Sixth Sense, where Ike, Stan's little brother, or Kyle, I can't, South Park, it's fine. Kyle's brother can see the ghosts. It's like Sixth Sense, but all the ghosts are like dead celebrities. And so Billy Mays is in it, and Farrah Fawcett, and a bunch of different, like Michael Jackson, I think, is in it at one point. But these ghost hunters are in this house, and the weird stuff doesn't happen to them, at least at first. And they start freaking out over like random things, and like there's no noise, and the kids are there, and they're like, "What are you freaking out about?" And they're just like, "Oh, what was that? Oh my god!" And then it gets to one point where one of the dudes pisses himself. And he's just like, there's this warm liquid running down my legs. Oh, what is that? Oh, what is the ghost doing to me? And it's like he's peeing his pants. And then the real ghosts start showing up, and they all end up running away. But it's just like, you know, it's obviously very exaggerated, but that is, by all accounts, what, you know, the whole paranormal, cryptid hunting, ghost hunting, whatever, has kind of evolved into. And I agree with you. It is a huge shame, because you're at the point where you're like, you know, if you're in the woods and you're hunting Bigfoot, for example, right? You don't need to run through the woods screaming at the top of your lungs, and then like a branch will break because, you know, like, I don't know, maybe some deer are getting frisky. And then you go, "Oh, that was definitely a Bigfoot. We're gonna send that for like audio analysis." Like, no. You know, if you find something like, you know, like a heat spike or a cold spike in a house, you're in a haunted house or an asylum or something that should be haunted, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a ghost, but they will freak out. And the funniest part is they will get to the end of the episode, and some of them, I know ghost hunters specifically did this for a while, is they would try and disprove what had happened. And they would turn around and like, I almost feel like half the time they were probably super embarrassed to have to like show this to like the people who were commissioning them, and just be like, "Yeah, so that hot spike was because Jason farted." And then Jason's just like, "It wasn't me, man." And it's like, "It came from your direction." He's like, "Okay, well, we shouldn't have had Taco Bell before we shot. What the hell?" And then you have the ones where it is like, one, super edgy. Like, you got the guys who come in with like, you know, like eyeliner on, and they think they're about to shoot like a My Chemical Romance music video or something like that. They're preparing for Warped Tour, and they're like all edgy in this house, like, you know, like, "I'm here to communicate with the demons." And the same shenanigans happen where they freak out and they start screaming and whatever, and then they leave. And, you know, instead of leaving it where it's like, okay, this was definitely not a ghost, they end the episode going, "What do you think?" It could be anything. It could have been a possum. It could have been some freaky homeless sex. It could have been a ghost. What do you think? And then you leave the episode going, "I just wasted 45 minutes of my life."
Like, there's one channel, well, two. So there's Sam and Colby, and then there is Overnight. And they all used to be together, but they've now kind of gone off on their own and stuff. And a lot of it is definitely made up. I mean, it's YouTube. Their main demographic is like 2-year-old kids, you know what I mean? But one thing that's really fun is it's neat to see the reactions to things when you know that they're being genuine with it, because like, if I was in that situation, I would probably have the same kind of reaction. Like, I know for a fact, if I was in Waverly Hills, like, by myself, and I even heard like the faintest like whisper of a wind, I would probably scream and run away, you know what I mean? And so like, when you have a group of people and everybody hears the same thing at the same time, or, you know, you're down in a basement where there's no light, and there's this bright flash of light, like, I have a story about that I could tell. Like, that sort of stuff is the stuff that I like to see, because that to me is more believable than you like one person hearing some like weird sound but not catching it anywhere, and not, and it's like, well, what do you think it was? I'm not here to tell you what I think it was. That's your job. You are the entertainer. So
the funniest part about that is, and this kind of ties into what you're talking about, where you're with a group of people, and the ones who schmooze it up and really are just over the top will be those ones who will hear something, and instead of going like, what was that, like whisper to each other, they'll be like, oh my god, did you hear that? What was that? What was that? And they start freaking out, and you're just like, okay, cool, so now we can't, like, what if something else happened in the like 8 to 13 seconds you're screaming your lungs out?
Yep. And that's the thing, like, some of them will get pissed off and they're like, can you just stop like making noise so that way we can actually hear things, because that's the thing, like, now you may have actually missed like evidence that could be used to finally prove things, but you had to go and be just whatever it was that you felt you needed to be to do whatever. So I don't know, not trying to start any beef with anybody, but like well, do you want to hear the story that I can tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one that I've told many a times to people, and Josh can back it up. Josh is my husband, for those that don't know. So we were living in Virginia at the time, in Manassas, which is known to be basically a town built on a battlefield, which basically Virginia is just a huge battlefield. And it was always pretty crazy in there. A lot of my like super okay, the paranormal is definitely real stuff happened in that one, but this one was one of the most notable ones. So my husband and I don't remember if we were waking up or we were going to sleep, but we have blackout curtains because he works a really odd schedule and all that, and so maximum darkness is the best. And whatever it was, so whether we were waking up or going to sleep, I saw this super bright like flash of light, and at first I was like, okay, maybe it was lightning, but I knew that the drapes were closed, so I was like, if that was lightning, that was probably the brightest flash ever to happen. And then I was like, okay, did somebody like take a photo? But then it's like, who would be in my home to take a photo of us? But then what got me was Josh actually like looking over at me and being like, did you just see that? And we still to this day have absolutely no idea what it was. We have no explanation. Like, we looked it up, and there's things from maybe because like balls of electricity can manifest like completely natural. It's almost like lightning, but to do so inside of a house is very, very uncommon. But this is from a man who, before me, had never witnessed anything paranormal and has now begun to witness it, so that's great. I brought that to him. But, like, I just remember that very, very vividly, and it's like, even at the point of that, like, neither of us freaked out like crazy. It was more of like a, holy shit, did that just happen, And I guess for me, like, that's why I have such a hard time with a lot of these ghost hunters, is like going to something like this, like a house where there's a bunch of dolls and all of this. It's like, I would rather, me personally, learn the history of it, get all through that, and then have you guys actually sit down with it and take it seriously, like, obviously have a little bit of fun, because I mean, you're there and it's an island and all that, but have decency to realize that, like, even if like it's not real or it is, somebody did die there, and whether it was the little girl or the man or whatever, like, at least have the decency to be respectful in that way, and just because something scary happens doesn't mean that you have to like get up and run into a wall to make like some crazy theatrical like thumbnail for YouTube.
Yeah, I was about to say ball lightning, but I've never heard of ball lightning like manifesting over someone's bedspread.
And that was the thing, like, it came from a very distinct corner, and it wasn't by the window, and so that's why we were like, because we looked up afterward, like, we were like, there has to be, because again, with being on a battlefield, there's a ton of energy and everything like that, but we were like, that something natural had to have happened, but it was from the opposite corner, and I mean, when I say it was bright, like, it lit up the whole room. It was almost like somebody took a photo or like one of those old like photograph flashes that would like break the light afterward and everything. Like it was that bright, and still to this day have no idea what it was, and is my top 2 craziest things to ever happen to me in my life paranormal wise.
Yeah, that's wild. And it makes me think of, what's the show called? The Osbournes Want to Believe, where Jack Osbourne gets a very tired Ozzy and Sharon into, like, my guess is their theater room or something like that in their house. And they film it where he basically shows them different, I shouldn't even just say paranormal, but like otherworldly things that have been captured. So it can be CCTV footage of an alleged ghost. It can be, you know, cell phone footage of a Bigfoot. It could be whatever. And the amount of times they've been shown UFO footage that could either be very compelling or not compelling. Like I'm pretty sure he showed them the disclosed footage from the Air Force where it looks just like, you know, a bunch of craft kind of just doing their thing.
Yep.
And almost every single time Ozzy he just doesn't, I feel like he doesn't even want to be there. He just goes, oh, ball lightning. And then it's just ball lightning and that's it. And then he rates it like a 1 out of 10 on the scary scale because it's ball lightning and it's always going to be ball lightning. So, but it's really funny. Like I can picture, like, you know, because Jack Osbourne does paranormal investigations, like he has his own show for it.
Yeah.
I can picture Jack Osbourne going to this island, if he hasn't already. I would totally not put it past him to have done an episode on this island, but goes to this island, has something just bafflingly weird or unexplainable happen to someone on his team or him himself, bring it home, show Ozzy and Sharon, and they both call him an idiot or whatever it is, and they're both just like, that's a 2 on the woogie boogie scale because you know, like it's a doll, like they're British. It's like, have you seen what Victorian dolls look like? So I at least with regards to this specific island, it's up for debate whether or not the girl herself even exists. There's a lot of speculation that says that he basically made everything up up until the point where he found the deceased girl. The doll was real, but you know, a lot of people basically said, no, you're full of it, because he said he found this girl. And like, I'm not even sure if there was any, you know, resolution as to what happened. Like, did he kind of just kick her back out to sea? Like, did he bury her? Like, I'm not sure if that information is public.
Yeah, I think there's speculation that he buried her, but again, there's no like physical proof that there's a body on there. But then again, I don't know if anybody's done like one of those body scan thingies, so
yeah, exactly. And so it's been called into question whether or not he made everything up. But like I said at the very beginning, at one point he basically just packed a bag and said bye to his family and then left, set up shop on this island, and then was just a hermit for 50 years. So it's like, he's not fully of sound mind, if you want to say it that way. And so it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility to say that he basically just made this whole thing up, but believed it in such a way that, you know, he started hanging dolls from trees for 50 years because he believed it so much that it became real for him. And then there's the opposite side where, I don't know if you've heard of what a tulpa is.
no.
So a tulpa is effectively like a cryptid or just like a supernatural being that comes into existence from immense, overwhelming like psychic energy. So you don't have to be a psychic to create one per se, as far as I'm aware, having read up on this kind of stuff. But if you were like, I want a garden gnome that's real and dances the Charleston every morning, and you got enough people to really believe that that was real, a tulpa is said to basically like spawn that very lawn gnome. And so there's a lot of stories throughout history that say like maybe cryptids or maybe certain ghosts or UFOs or certain phenomenon are tied to this manifestation of something because people just basically believe it into existence. And so it could be that maybe his belief into it was so powerful that after his death and it became a popular tourist attraction and people had heard the story, that's when it became real. Like these ghosts were like thought into existence.
I could believe that. And actually, now that you're saying it, I think I remember a Supernatural episode about that. So yeah, I'm part of that fandom, and I'm sorry.
I mean, I was for a while. Like my go-to whenever I go to wake the cat up and start my day is I'll throw the door open and go, "Rise and shine, Sammy." Which for those who don't know, it's kind of like a Groundhog Day episode.
Yes.
And that's what happens every morning. And so yeah, basically, I mean, whether or not you believe that it was real or not, whether or not you even believe in the paranormal, let alone like the fact that this guy may have or may not have found a girl who had drowned, it goes without saying that this island is creepy as hell.
Yeah.
And so imagine them on this island just everywhere, and half of them are like decrepit, and there's like, you know, like centipedes or whatever, like fauna exist on this island, like crawling through them and stuff. Like even without the paranormal aspect of it, like this is a very morbid looking island. It looks like something, I'm not gonna try and make light of the situation, but it looks like something like a serial killer would like set up shop in.
Yep.
You know, like he's just like, I'm home. Every night he comes home after dismembering something.
Yeah.
He comes back and is just like, the dolls are whispering to me. And that's just it. Even if they're not, like it's creepy, and you know.
Yeah. You know, I believe in psychics, clairvoyance, all that kind of stuff, just because I wouldn't say I believe in it. I just think that there is a possibility. So I won't say I don't believe in it. I believe that there is probably a lot of energy on that island. And so I think no matter what you do in any situation, there's going to be something happening in that sense. And so I wouldn't put it past that, you know, kind of like a placebo effect. You go over there and, you know, here are these dolls. And I mean, since we've been kids, it's always been like, oh yeah, you know, dolls are cool. But then you see them like that and it's like, okay, this is straight out of a horror movie. I am going to get murdered, you know? And then on top of that, you throw these people that just, you know, make the content for nothing other than clicks and money. It turns into this like crazy taboo place where if you go there, you're going to get possessed like the dolls are and all that, when in reality it could literally just be a island with dolls hanging, and it's not weird. Well, I mean, it's weird looking, but like you go there and there's like no weird feelings, and you literally just sit there and like, while it feels weird because there's a bazillion dolls like just staring at you and stuff, like literally nothing happens. Like that's kind of like one of my worst fears. Like if I go ghost hunting or something and then like nothing happens, like what a wasted like 6 hours of my life, you know? But then at the same time, it's cool that people give it this sort of attention, because I'm sure, I mean, because tourist industries, no matter what, help economies and stuff like that. And, you know, who knows, maybe this will be the place where, you know, something happens where finally we get some tangible evidence that there is an afterlife or something. But I just think people go about it the very wrong way, and it gets sensationalized when in reality you could just go there and be a normal human being and just chill out and just, you know, not do it for the sake of the clicks.
Yeah. And I'm kind of on the level with you with regards to like leaving empty-handed from a ghost hunt. But at the same point, like for me, it's not necessarily the destination, but also the journey.
Yeah.
Where you're there and you're like creeped out and things might not happen, but you're still in this area that is by all accounts creepy as hell. And so you're just like, you know, I'm scared for 6 hours, and then you leave and you're like, cool, my heart's about to explode. I feel like I drank 6 Red Bulls, but I had a good time.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't have, you know, 3 scratch marks down my leg or something like that, whatever people get.
The mark of the devil.
I'll tell you a quick story that happened to me. When was this? 2018. So in the fall of 2018. So this is about 3 years ago. It's actually the same month. It was during October. Back when I used to stream on Twitch, I tried to do, for Halloween, I tried to do like ghost hunts. So I would find either like abandoned or areas that you can explore freely in the greater Toronto area. I bought all this equipment. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, even thousands of dollars, probably not even hundreds of dollars on this equipment. It was like the Wish version of like, you know, like a thermometer or something like that, that you would click twice and it would just die. But whatever, I had it. And from when I was in school, I had a bunch of lapel mics. So I brought those with me just so that I didn't need to bring like a big mic. And so I went with a few people, and the first time we found this area that was supposed to be haunted, and we got there and it was creepy, but what kind of sullied the moment was I called them teenagers, but maybe it's because anyone who's younger than me is probably 12 years old. And they just rolled up in their cars because there was like a communal parking lot, and then, you know, like this field, and then there was this area that we were walking through. And you could hear them like joking around, probably drinking, smoking the wacky tobacco, whatever it is. They were doing their thing. And so we were like, okay, this sucks. Fast forward about a week or 2 weeks, whenever it was, a few other people and I decide to go to this church that has a little cemetery beside it that's near the Toronto Zoo. So it's in the east end of the city. And so we go, there's no parking. Like, I literally had to park on the side of the road, almost in a ditch, because there's nowhere to park. And this is a main road. Like, the speed limits were probably like, I don't know, 70, 80 kilometers an hour. And so we get there. One, it's raining. So the two people I'm with are like, there is absolutely no way I'm getting out of this car right now. It's raining. And two, it's like, we went at night, obviously, because it's creepy. It was like 11 o'clock at night. So I'm like, all right, screw it. You know what? It's cold. It's wet. We'll leave. We're not going to do a ghost hunt. Not going to stream it, whatever. I'm going to go and take a few pictures. So I walked up to this house, or church rather. I took, I don't know, maybe like 10 pictures. And the way to describe it is, it's a very old school church. So I don't know if you or anyone at home has seen Midnight Mass on Netflix, but it's a lot like the church. At least the outside looked a lot like the church from there. Like very old, worn out wood, you know, very simple, like front doors, whatever. It was locked. Like there was no way to get in, and I'm not ready to break and enter because I'm not one of those ghost hunters. And beside it, to its left, if you're facing the church, immediately to the left, there's this small box of land where they have like a tiny little cemetery. There's maybe like 20 plots, 30 plots, I don't know. And then immediately behind the church that wraps around to the like closest side to the road of the cemetery is a forest. So it's very dense forest. It also is night, so I can't really see that far into the darkness. And so I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to hop this fence and just kind of walk around this cemetery for a few minutes, take a couple pictures, and then, you know, I'll leave. It's like the gray area for breaking and entering. It's like, I'm not like breaking a window. I'm just trespassing in a plot of land I shouldn't be on. I didn't end up doing that, but here's why. So before I did that, I was like, you know what? And I just have my phone camera. This is before I got my DSLR. I'm leaning over the fence to the point where like my upper half is majority in the cemetery, and my feet are kind of just holding on to this fence. And I'm trying to take pictures. I'm trying to just see into there without having to justify going in and walking around. And I swear to God, like up and down, cross my heart, cootie shot, whatever, from somewhere in the darkness. And what I mean by darkness is like, you can see into the cemetery, but like as soon as you hit the tree line, you hear nothing, or like you see nothing rather. It's just pitch darkness. the road light that was just across the street from the church, it did not reach that far. And so, again, up and down, I swear to God, I'm leaning over, I'm taking pictures. I probably still have them saved somewhere. Gotta have to look for those, but while I'm leaning over trying to get a good picture, I hear with like absolute certainty just a breath. And it sounded like it sounded loud enough that it sounded like it was in the cemetery plot, like it was close enough to me.
Yeah.
But again, I can't see anything. All I can see are these little like silhouetted tombstones and then a tree line behind a fence on the opposite end. So I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay. And so I kind of lean forward to try and hear it again, but I hear nothing. And it's to the point where I'm kind of like, did I really hear that? And I'm certain that I did, because, you know, hearing like a tree snap is one thing, because you can be like, that could be anything, but hearing a breath is very different.
Yeah, because like wind and stuff like that, it's not going to make that sort of a sound.
Exactly. It didn't sound like someone was exhaling. And I remember specifically when that happened, I actually leaned over and looked back at my car, and sure enough, my passengers were both sitting in the car talking. There were only 3 of us. And this is a pretty remote area. Like, there's not much going on. Like, the zoo is a little ways away, but then further down from the zoo, it's just like all industrial. So I'm kind of like, okay, what exhaled? And so then I get freaked out. Then the hair on my neck stands up, and I'm going, okay, one of 2 possibilities. Either 1, it's a ghost, in which case awesome, but also scary. 2, it could be like a squatter effectively in the woods or near the cemetery who spotted us, and that's kind of like them giving away their presence. And the reality of that being a possibility sets in, and I just hightailed it back to my car. I got in my car, I'm like, we're leaving. Pulled a U-turn on the road, and we drove home. And my passengers are both like, what happened? And I didn't tell them until we got home. And we get back to my place, we crack open a couple beers, we're all sitting around my couch talking, and I tell them, and they both look at me and they go, you're messing with me. And I'm like, I am absolutely dead serious. Why do you think I sprinted back to the car? And so that's my like more recent like haunting story. I don't know if it was a haunting. I didn't even freak out. I just kind of like, you know, straight face expression, just sauntered back to the car at a pace. Yeah, I would say it was a pace that, you know, like elderly couples will like walk through like a path with their matching tracksuits on. Like that was the pace that I was setting for myself. Hopped in my car, pulled a U-turn, and we dipped. And I didn't live too far away at the time. I lived about 15 minutes away, so it was like a really quick drive back, and the whole time I'm like sweating. Like,
yeah. And so that leads me to my question. So this island of the dolls, is it like protected, or can anybody go on it? Like, do you know if you need like a license or like a pass to get on it?
That's a very good question. Actually, I have no idea.
Because for me, that's one of my things. Like, people will go, what is it, like urban exploring and stuff like that. And like, coming from a really low income, just bad area, like growing up and stuff like that, like you don't go to abandoned places. And that would be like my kind of like fear, is going to something like this where it's completely remote. And maybe somebody has decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and this is where I'm gonna be living, because nobody comes out here, obviously. Like, I would be so afraid that I would go out there and like either deal with somebody in that sense, like physical danger, or them be the ones kind of just like messing around or something like that. I don't know. Like, the island itself is just creepy, and then thinking about humans who are just really crappy anyway, like, I don't know, there's so many different things that could be going on there.
I would imagine that it's maybe not necessarily protected as in it's like a heritage site or something, but I would imagine that with how much popularity it has and like the amount of tourism that it probably brings in just for people to go see that island, I would imagine that it is probably more you have to get permission, and you know, like the ferry over there or whatever, you take a boat and they sell tickets and all this kind of stuff, where it's a little more like bureaucratic at this point.
Yeah.
With all of that said, if you're the type of person who goes to this island and sees, you know, creepy, dirty, half dismembered dolls with just the emptiest eyes, and you don't immediately piss your pants like you had just seen two Bigfoots fighting, then like I beg of you, please tell me where you had your balls encased in steel, because I am just the biggest wuss when it comes to this stuff, but I really want to explore this place.
You could go there, like, and just, like, put, like, a protective barrier around you, like, just be in a bubble. Like, put yourself into a bubble while you're there so nothing can, like, touch you or, like, enter your body or anything, and you'll be fine.
I mean, the more like feasible thing would be to buy like a set of truck nuts, you know, like the nuts that like hang off like the tailgate of a truck, hollow them out, and then just like secure myself in them, and then there you go. I'm ready to go. I got balls of steel, so. Away from civilization, things get strange and unsettling. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok to get the full, immersive, strange wilderness experience. Links to everything will be provided in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and stay safe. Because as you know, it can get wild out there.